Welcome to the Virtual Door Knocking Campaigning in 2020 podcast. Today with my guest, Nancy Jetton, we will be discussing the power of the podcast and how it applies to our present situation with campaigning and running for public office. So welcome, Nancy. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Why don't you give the audience a quick little overview of what you do?
I am the author of the Bye Bye Boring Bio workbook for 2020. This is the third edition of a book I wrote initially in 2009 and 2010 that has since gone on to serve speakers, experts, and authors worldwide who want to transform their boring bios from wallpaper to wow to attract clients now. I come to you from Bellingham, Washington, where I make my home with my husband and my adorable cockapoo Champion. And it's really nice to be here with you today.
So I love that phrase, from wallpaper to wow. So what does that look like with a candidate running for public office?
Well, let's be a little more broad for the moment.
Okay.
You know, sometimes bios, I'm going to use banking as an example just for illustration purposes. I used to do work with 4 different community banks in the Puget Sound area. And when I would visit all their bios, they all read like wallpaper. They all went to the same prestigious Pacific Northwest banking school. They went to the same brilliant business schools. They had 2.5 kids and lived on Mercer Island or whatever. And if you took away the logo for the bank that they worked for, there was nothing differentiating or memorable about any of them. So this is what I call the blah, blah, blah boilerplate bio that doesn't do anyone any favors.
Yep.
And so if you are a candidate for public office, take the opportunity to make your bio stand apart by saying something that will be memorable, remarkable, repeatable, tweetable, have some heart or connection, so that when people think of you, they remember something about you, especially the call to action that you most want them to take, which is cast their vote in your direction.
Absolutely. So let's get down to why we're here, about how to use the virtual method or podcasting to run your campaign. As we all know, COVID-19 has put a lot of restrictions on us. There's social distancing, there's the phases, there's some closure still, and it doesn't make it very easy for the old way of doing things, which is, door knocking and talking to people, having rallies, shaking hands and kissing babies. So with that in mind, Nancy, what is your definition truly of a poorly communicated bio, and how does it apply to the candidate running?
Well, a poorly communicated bio is just the facts, ma'am. There's no heart or smarts to it. It doesn't tell any memorable stories or share their goals. It might be absent of powerful endorsements. And it's what I call boilerplate instead of really great. And what I would say to any candidate is, with the power of social media being so prevalent and a way that we stay connected with people that we care about and people that we want to influence, today's a good day to look at all the bios that you have on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, your website, the Facebook group you lead, and ask yourself if you're telling a consistent, compelling, memorable story that has heart, that lets people know what your distinct and differentiating point of view might be. Because if you don't like what you see, today would be the wake-up call to make sure that you update and upgrade for your upside. And so often people just slap together a bio for a publication or whatever, almost like it's a box to check. Like Michelle Obama says, I'm a box checker. I just checked that box. Just because you check the box doesn't mean you got it right.
Exactly. Isn't that true?
Yeah.
So tell me, what system would you use to guide these candidates to create a better bio, to get really more connection and more doors opened?
Well, I actually have a 5-step system that is really powerful to help people get to the outcome that they desire. So I'll just share the 5 steps with you.
Absolutely.
The first step is to decide what you want your bio to accomplish. What outcome do you want? What do you want it to accomplish? in the business world, sometimes people want to have a bio to welcome speaking gigs or podcast guesting opportunities, or to create conversations that can turn into collaborations or other outcomes. So decide first what you want. The second step is to reflect on the who, the how, and the wow. Who's it for? Why does it matter? And what is the wow factor that you bring to this conversation that will make you stand out? And then you want to prove your value and impact. And here's where you can share your endorsements, awards, important recognition you've achieved in accomplishing important goals in your community. It's where you can share your credentials, important things that are going to lead to your credibility and your authority. And then I think one of the most important things you can do is to add your personality. That's the fourth step. And that could be as simple as having a statement of philosophy at the start of your story so people can be grabbed at hello. I'll use my husband, Steve, as an example. He's a certified financial planner professional, fee-only fiduciary. That's all well and good. You line them up end to end and you could probably, have a circle of life around the world. But what's different about his bio is what we call a sassy soundbite that starts at the top. It says, people hire me for my head, trust me for my heart, and trust me most when I use both. And just with one simple statement of philosophy, your shoulders are relaxing, you're taking a deep breath, you're going, this guy sounds like someone I want to learn more about. So as a candidate for public office, what kind of a statement of philosophy do you have that could be something you stand on and stand for, that could be the number one thing that people see first that has them falling in love with you and wanting to cast their vote? Think about how you could, cull it down to its essential essence so that people would remember that, because That's where the connection happens.
I like that.
And then the fifth step in this 5-step series is to prepare your right-sized stories for the platforms where you show up. Because with Twitter, you get 160 characters to say what you want to say. With Instagram, I think it's 101 characters. With Facebook, something very similar. I can't remember who said it first, but if I wanted a shorter speech, if I'd had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. If I'd had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. The shorter the space you have to use, it seems like the more time it takes to cull down your message to be relevant and of service,
right,
and to connect with people. So my advice is to start with 100 words, see if you can cull it down to 50 words, and then take the best and leave the rest, and you'll have all of your profiles across all the places where you engage, consistent, relevant, connected, and unified in the big idea that you want to convey, and most importantly, the call to action that you want people to take as a result of crossing paths with you in the first place.
Now that is great advice. So now you and I are doing this through a podcast. So now how can the candidate take those 5 steps and apply that in a podcast?
Well, one thing that's really helpful and door opening is to create what I call, and is often called, a media one sheet. And a media one sheet is a simple one sheet of paper that has your picture on it, a good quality, current, attractive, engaging photo, not one from 10 years ago, but one that looks like you today. It has your title, what you're running for, a bio, that 50-word bio, that's what is the mission you're fighting for, what's your distinct point of view, and then you could include 3 distinct talking points or topics that you love to speak about that are written in a provocative way. And then you want to also have at least 2 powerful endorsements, and then how a podcast host can get in touch with you, phone, email, and perhaps your social media following, because sometimes they will go to your various social media platforms to see what kind of a level or magnitude of influence you have. And if they have a lot of people there, makes you more of a mover and shaker that they want to have on their program. So when you have a Media One sheet, that becomes a door opener, because you could reach out to the podcast that you most want to be seen, heard, and celebrated on, and say something like, I had the opportunity to listen to your podcast yesterday featuring ABC candidate who talked about X, Y, and Z. I would love to be on the podcast to share an alternative point of view, which is this. My name is, I'm running for this office, and I'm readily available to share my point of view and be a great guest for your program. Here's how you can reach me. If you reach out to the podcasts that are right for your message and you make a professional presentation to them, you may be the dream guest that they were looking for. And when you get the opportunity to take the microphone, you can rock your message and benefit from the embedded listeners that are already subscribed to that channel. So even though you can't go door knocking literally, there may be hundreds or thousands of people who are tuning in regularly to benefit from that podcast, and you get to reach them without ever leaving your house.
All right, that is very, very good. So now let me just ask you another quick question here. So there's a good chance that most of the debates are going to be done virtually as well. So and you've seen debates on TV, so what advice would you give that candidate to really, when they're now standing side by side on this virtual stage, to really, signify their bio in a more different way, because now it's more of a competitive way, because my competitors are standing right next to me virtually?
Well, if you know the message that helps you and your campaign stand apart, that needs to come out front and center right out of the gate. My name is, all that. I grew up in a little small town. Hope is, I remember Bill Clinton saying something around, I grew up in a town called Hope. But it was so magical the way he did that. I grew up in a town called Hope, and the values around that town were all about A, B, and C, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight. What was so great about the way he did that is that he got the heart of the message with his first line of text. So to what extent can you come out with your mission, your movement, your differentiating qualities and factors so that it doesn't sound boilerplate instead of really great?
Yep.
That's going to differ for everyone. But if you've been studying your competitors, you probably know what sets you apart. So don't be shy and come right out and say it in a really great way. That's my advice.
Now, I'm assuming that, many of these candidates are going to see this particular podcast and they're going to reach out to you. So if someone came out, called you today, reached out to you today, what advice would you give them today as a candidate?
Well, I want to thank you for your service. Thank you for your mission, because this is a very challenging world we're finding ourselves in, and we need leaders. So thank you for stepping up. That would be the first thing I would say, gratitude. And the second thing I would say is offer a compelling story. Make it an interesting read. Share just the right and relevant personal details to create some level of know, like, and trust. Make sure your photos are current. I'll never forget the time that I met a guy at a coffee shop. I'm a tall gal, and I said, well, I'll meet you at the coffee shop. How will I know it's you? He says, well, I'm very tall. I said, well, that helps a lot. He says, go to my website, check me out. I go to his website to check him out, and he's got these like chestnut brown hair. So I go to the coffee shop and I'm looking for a really tall man with chestnut brown hair. And I'm right there on time. I'm thinking, where the heck is this guy? He was seated in the coffee shop corner somewhere else, full head of gray hair. And he said, I've been waiting for you for 15 minutes. I said, you do not look like your website.
Nice.
Get it together. If the words and the music don't match, what else are you going to fib about? So make sure your photos are current. Make sure you include endorsements from influential people and recognition that you're proud of that's relevant to what you're up to. showcase your goals, offer some inspiration, and of course, ask for their vote. These are some, just the bare essence of what needs to be included. And the more that you can make it human and connected, the better it is, because the logical mind is one thing, but a lot of us make decisions emotionally. And to the extent that you can touch a nerve or create some kind of emotion or tell a very short story about why you do what you do. And I'll just give an example from a different industry just to make my point. There are so many real estate professionals in America and around the world that help you buy and sell homes. They all sound the same. It's like a Whitney Houston song. But when you tell a story like, when I was 9 years old, I played Monopoly with the whole neighborhood, and I always ended up with more houses and hotels than anyone else. I think it was then that I knew that a career in real estate would be my calling. You'll remember that. She told a story that let you know that this thing that she does isn't something she just does for money. It's something she's truly gifted at, and she's been doing it all her life. A story I tell is that I grew up in the shadow of a Hollywood actor who needed to be seen, heard, and celebrated, and I faded into the wallpaper to survive in that family. Is it any wonder that I know how important it is for others to be made to feel important, which is why I'm able to help people find the magic in their message so that they can be important to those that they want to influence. These are the kinds of stories that help people get to know you very quickly, and they can decide right away if they like, know, and trust you, or if they want to run in the opposite direction. So do what you can to create that know, like, trust, and the heart connection or the head connection or that gut connection, because without that, people won't be called to go to the polls. And goodness gracious, we have a lot of serious problems that need to be addressed in America today and in our communities, and we need good candidates to stand apart to make those issues to address those issues in a way that can make our communities better. And the more you show up as your best with heart and soul, as well as credentials, the better served you will be.
Well, thank you, Nancy. And you're no longer any wallpaper in my mind. So how would a candidate get a hold of you if they wanted to reach out to you?
I recommend that they download the #1 Amazon best-selling preview to Bye Bye Boring Bio 2020 at www.byebuyeboringbio.com. And if you do that, you'll be in my world, and it'll be easy for us to connect and correspond. And if there's something more I can do to support you and others in the mission you're fighting for, it'd be my pleasure.
Well, Nancy, thank you for your time today. This has been very, very beneficial and relevant, especially for today's candidates. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.